McDonald's. At 3, she goes to St. Charles East.
Hi, Rochelle.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thanks. So Rochelle, this is Mila.
Hi, Mila.
And
Nice to meet you.
Dr. McCall, who has helped us get all this together.
Excellent. I am looking forward to hearing from you, Mila. This is really exciting. So great that you were able to come and be a part of this with us.
Good morning, Rachel. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Fantastic.
Hi, Mila. I haven't seen you in years. How are you, darling? Tell your mom I said hello. That was such a shock. I just looked up and was like, wait a minute, I know you. Makes perfect sense, though.
All right. We just need one more board member and then we will have a quorum.
And Julia, we also have one of our assistant principals from West Aurora High School joining us, Mrs. Kegerice.
Awesome. So it might make sense, Rochelle, you have a quorum, but it might make sense to do introductions so that we know who everyone is. But we're good to go when you're ready.
You're muted, Rochelle.
Thank you. I have not done that in a little bit now. Hello, everyone. We have some guests today, so I thought it would be a good idea for us to go ahead and do take formal introductions. I am Rochelle Conant. I am the chair of the Juvenile Justice Council Board, and I am the public defender in King County. Do you want to, LaTanya?
Hello, my name is LaTanya Hill. I'm one of the directors of probation or court services. And I'm the designee today for my boss, Lisa Alls, the executive director. I primarily deal with juvenile probation issues, juvenile programming issues for court services.
Judge Parga?
Good morning, afternoon. My name is Sandra Parga. I am the judge here in delinquency court.
Kristen?
Hello, my name is Kristen Lorsdorfer. I'm a detective with the North Aurora Police Department, and I am the president of the Juvenile Officer Association for Kane County.
Deb?
Debbie Conforti. I am with the Kane County State's Attorney's Office Juvenile Division.
And Mike?
Good afternoon, Commander Mike Frieders, Geneva Police Department. I'm here as a representative of the Kane County Chiefs of Police Association.
And Eric?
Eric Majewski, I'm with St. Charles Police Department, and I'm here also representing Kane County Chiefs of Police.
And we're getting, Mike is coming on, but we have some, Julia, if you can help me, I don't know who are guests and some of the names and who are part of our.
Sure. Do we want to start with Dr. McCall? Do you want to introduce yourself, and then maybe you can help with the additional guests, because I know you extended some invites.
Sure. My name is Dr. Valerie McCall. I'm the Director of Educational Equity here in West Aurora School District 129. And we also have some friends of our 129 team. We have Mila Roundy, who is our student that will be presenting from West Aurora High School. We also have one of the assistant principals, Erica Kegereis, and we also have Carlos. I'll let them introduce themselves. And I believe we also have Mila's dad with us. So I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Erica Kegereis. As Valerie said, I'm the assistant principal overseeing student activities, and I'm here supporting Mila. Thank you.
Hi, as Lou said, I am Mila's dad. I'm James Roundy, so I'm just going to go off in the background and let her do her thing.
Hi everyone, my name is Carlos Villarreal. I'm with the Community Affairs Department. I'm here to listen to what Mila has to say and to highlight her on our district social media and newsletter.
Okay, and Mr. Doyen, I didn't mean to skip you. You were still connecting to audio.
Yeah, I joined YouTube first, so you all looked really good on YouTube live stream, so I had to switch back to the Zoom connection.
Okay.
Do you want to say where you're from, Mike?
Oh, I'm for the King County Bar Association. I'm an attorney in Elgin.
And then I think, sorry, Rochelle, I think we have, is that Rashika Norwood from NIAP? I think joined us, our Norwood.
Yes, it is. I apologize about my camera being broke. IT is trying to fix it now. But my name is Rashika Norwood. I'm the DJJ program coordinator for NIAP. And it's nice to meet everyone.
Great. Well, thank you for all of our guests for coming. We are really excited to hear from Mila. And just for our board members, just a refresher, Mila is a sophomore at West Aurora High School and is a member of the Student Equity Advisory Council. And we are pleased to have you here with us today, Mila, and looking forward to hearing from you. And I will turn it over to you now.
So hi everyone, I'm Mila, and today I'm going to be presenting you with three things. I have some survey results that me and the other members of the Student Equity Advisory Council came up with, and then I have some generalized tips, and then lastly I will finish it off with a letter that I wrote. So I'm going to start with the survey results, which is the third slide, I believe, on that. Okay, so we came up with some questions, and these are just some of the most generalized and the things that I saw most prevalent from it. So 56.7% of the students say that they have experienced some form of inequity at school. And then the topic viewed as most important at school was word usage / slurs, followed closely by racism and identity awareness. And then many people say that they would like the people who typically encounter inequity the most to be prioritized when asking questions and making changes, but also that everyone should have more widespread access to education regarding what they can do to personally make a difference or change. And then a common theme of bettering education was present throughout the survey responses to ultimately be inclusive to all students in regards of race, gender, identity, disability, language, and most prevalent, the curriculum. Curriculum was specifically associated with being more individualized in common core subjects and being more diverse throughout the curriculum by including LGBTQ plus history, updated sex ed, and further addressing mental health. And so then I have some tips that are generalized, and I will address them more in the letter that I have. So the first one is see and acknowledge the color of our skin. When one denies the fact that we are people of color, our experiences are erased. And our color is one of the only things that we cannot change about ourselves, and that will always be a huge factor in our lives. Second, do not minimize who we are due to our race. Just because our color is acknowledged does not mean it defines us and puts us into these stereotypical boxes. We are individuals first and should be treated as such even when there are commonalities amongst others. And then lastly, just listen. When we have the courage to speak out about something, typically it holds a lot of importance to us. If we say something is discriminatory or comes from a biased perspective, then please listen, because our experiences are valid, and just because it is not true for all does not mean it isn't true for us. Okay, and then I have my letter, which isn't on the screen. So once again, my name is Mila Roundy. I am 16 years old and a sophomore at West Aurora High School. Moving throughout the world that does not belong to me as a Black teenager, I hope to provide some insight on what is needed to know, but also understood, because at the end of the day, it is important to recognize that there will almost never be a true equivalent between you and me. So to start off honestly, I am scared of the government, politics, and the criminal justice system. However, it is the field I do want to pursue in life, because I want to be that change where any person of color or minority can genuinely say, without a doubt, that these people are here to help and protect me. At this time in my life, I cannot say that, and I can't guarantee that I ever will. I want to make it known that in regards to equity and race, a person of color's experience will always be valid, even if it does not seem to be a pressing issue at that time. Like I said before, this world does not belong to me because it is a white world. No matter where I go, I will always be reminded of my Blackness and everyone else's whiteness. I can easily recognize this because I must assimilate to the white culture that surrounds us in every aspect, including at school. All of our classrooms, and specifically our history classes, are heavily whitewashed, which diminishes my everyday experiences. Too many times, people my age, the media, and adults I haven't interacted with try to diminish my experiences, and that cannot happen. If I tell someone that perceiving me as a strong Black woman is not the compliment that they think it is, then it is simply that. I am the one that has to deal with the repercussions of struggling and not receiving adequate help because people think I am strong in all situations. It is my life and my experiences, and no one else can know what that is truly like. No one knows what the experience of a minority is unless they have lived it, and that needs to be acknowledged. When working with anyone who has even a slight connection to being mistreated by these systems, then there will need to be a difference in how we are treated and interacted with. Some of us have generational trauma where we may never have had a personal interaction with someone like the police, but our family members have, and this chain will continue to link onto the next generations until we can all finally relax. Ultimately, it is the difference between equity and equality needing to be observed in individual situations. No one can be grouped into the same box no matter how similar they are. If in school there's too much equality, that leaves little room for equity. We are taught to treat people in the same way, learn in the same manner, and essentially just live our lives as a group, even though we are individuals. I personally do not speak for all students of color, but when working with us, I want you to understand that we come from different backgrounds and perceive the world differently. Even if there is that one person or one group who is the difference, alone they do not erase all the things that have happened in the past and that are still happening in other areas currently. And that's all I have. So thank you.
Thank you, Mila. That was wonderful. You have really great insight and you did such a good job. You didn't seem nervous at all. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Mila?
I first just want to thank you for being willing to come speak to a group such as these and give your full, honest truth, knowing where and what agencies we represent and how that could be intimidating. And then to hear you still say, even understanding some of the barriers that's faced in the judicial system and the criminal justice system, that you have a desire to do that. And I think we felt that and understood that because you were very concise and being able to explain your perspective. And you did it in a way that I think anyone in this room would be able to take back and say, you know, what are some things that we could do differently, or what are some things that we need to acknowledge in our individual agencies and purviews. And I think that's, this is an intimidating room, and you walked into this Zoom room and gave it to us in a very clear, concise manner. And I just want to thank you for that.
Mila, my name's Kristen. I'm a detective with North Aurora Police Department, and I would love if you were willing to, and of course with your parents, to sit down with you more to kind of further this discussion regarding law enforcement and these relationships, because I think it's imperative, especially at a time like this, that we better understand, where people are coming from, because a lot of us don't. So if that's something that you'd be interested in, I'll give my contact information to Julia so that can be shared. But I would love to continue this discussion a little bit, further and see what we can do to again, try to bridge this gap between, law enforcement and society at a time like this.
Anybody else have any comments or questions for Mila?
I would just like to say publicly in front of all of you all how much of a leader Mila has been in our Student Equity Advisory Council. Not only did she spearhead putting together the survey, getting it distributed to our students, she's maintained continuous and regular contact with me to make sure that all the paces are followed to get things distributed. She has spoken her truth, as you heard, but she's done that every single one of our meetings. She's been an inspiration to our students that have been on SEAC. And it wasn't until we were halfway through that I realized she was only a sophomore. I thought she was on her way because she's such a well-spoken, such a mature young lady, and just such a pleasure, such an asset to our Student Equity Advisory Council. So thank you, Mila, for being a true leader and for speaking your truth.
Mila, I just have one question. When you send out the surveys, you send them, as Dr. McCall said, you sent them to students at your school?
Yes.
And did you get good results back from them? Were they willing to participate with you?
Yeah, a lot of the answers were really detailed. There were some that were like multiple choice, but for the ones that were free responses, it wasn't just like a couple words, like people actually went into detail with this.
That's great, great. Anyone else?
Mila, do you have any suggestions in ways that maybe a group like ours could have an impact or have more communication with your generation, your age group, so that we can hopefully hand this system off in a better way, in a better manner than it is right now?
I would say the best way to get in contact with us would probably be our schools, like seeing if schools have like a council like we do at West. I feel like that's like where you're going to get the most participation, because one, not everyone is on social media, and even if they are, you're not going to reach like the audience that you specifically want to. So I think reaching out to schools, seeing if like the administration has any students in mind or anything like that, I think that would be the best way.
Okay, if no one has anything else, I thank you again, Mila, for coming, for bringing all of your guests with you. It was a pleasure to have you here today, and I expect that you are going very far based upon your presentation today. So congratulations to you, and thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I'd second that. That was very impressive, Mila.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mila. I'll say you gave me goosebumps when you were speaking, so I appreciate it.
Okay. All right, so we can move on with the rest of our meeting. The minutes from April were sent out. If anybody can give a couple of minutes for people to take a look at those. Was there any discussion on the minutes? Then those will be approved as presented. And we will move on to the chairman's report. Julia's, there were some issues with getting the numbers for our financial numbers for the report, but we will get those sent out to the board members as soon as we are able to get those.
Sorry, I was just going to clarify, like nothing concerning. It's just there was a delay because our financial person was out. So he is back. Thank goodness, because the grant's due next week, but I will get those to you all.
And then the only other part of the chairman's report is still trying to get a representative from the county board to be a part of our board. I can tell you that they're in the middle of two very big things right now. So I am still trying to get someone who can attend our meetings, but I do know that they are all very busy right now. But hopefully we'll get that accomplished very soon. And we can move on to old business. So nothing new to report on youth focus groups or the de-escalation videos. Julia, do you want to talk about law enforcement training?
Yeah, so we had left off at the last meeting for us to reach out to the Let's Be to see if the strategies for youth training curriculum would align with the requirements. Apparently there's been some transitions all over the state. So there's been transitions in a Let's Be as well. And so I'm patiently awaiting a phone call either today or it was supposed to be yesterday, but potentially today to provide some additional details. And they're still trying to get an answer about whether or not it would align with the state mandates. So just giving that update.
Any questions on that? Okay, so nothing new on parent engagement. So we're moving on to restorative practices. We did an email vote as to whether the CPDU fee for restorative practices, that vote did pass. And the 2-day introductory training was completed, and there are 10 individuals confirmed for the training of trainers in June. Did you want to add to that, Julia?
I can, just for the good of the board to be aware of where these individuals are coming from. So we've got, I believe there are, actually, I don't have it pulled up. There's, I think at least four school districts represented where we have at least one representative coming to do the training of trainers. We also have someone from the YWCA in Elgin. Pam Ely from Court Services is going to be doing it so that we can bring it into the detention center. There's someone from Midwest PBIS doing it, and the value of that is that they provide technical assistance with schools that are trying to implement positive behavior intervention supports, I think is the acronym for that one, PBIS. They try to support them, but I think just having kind of a wide casted net of individuals that are going to be participating in this training of trainers will help us build capacity. And so we have 10, so we are full. And we'll get those MOUs signed.
Any questions on that? Okay, so we can move on to the resource folder. Just to update, we did have a meeting on the resource folder. Julia did an initial draft that was sent out to all of the members of the committee, and Julia is working on the revisions that were suggested, and we'll resubmit for review to the committee after the grant is completed. Any questions on that? All right. And then racial and ethnic disparities. A meeting needs to be scheduled either for the red team to reconvene or to pursue the next step in the conversation about adolescent domestic battery. I don't know if you have anything that you wanted to contribute to that, Julia?
No, I think that's just kind of where we left off. And so just working on following up and figuring out when we can schedule either one of those. That's kind of, like I said, where we left off.
Okay. And Julia is continuing to do the individual meetings. She'll be reaching out to more people once the grant has been completed and submitted. As part of these discussions with Julia, feel free to, if you want to talk about the grant as part of your individual meeting, that is a topic that she is inviting you to discuss with her, and any input or suggestions or comments on that would be appreciated. And then our next item is the current expenditures. We had previously had a line item for the restorative practice books. So we need to have a discussion as to whether we want to have a vote on continuing to fund those. Any suggestions, comments, questions about that?
Just clarity, this is just providing the book for those that will complete the training, correct?
Yeah, so they don't have to go through the training in order to like read the book. The book could still be helpful to them to support. But I think as we build capacity with having more trainers available, having this stockpile of books may be of benefit, especially once things are returning in person. When things were being done virtual, they offered excerpts from the book, but it's not the entire book at all. And so there may be some more relevant material that's in the book that could be beneficial to individuals who are going through the training. I know some districts have even done like book circles kind of thing where they read the book together to really look at the information that's in it. So it'd just be a continued support, but it was in our budget already for the current fiscal year.
So Julia, our next step would be, we would have to put it on, could we do an email vote for this if we want to continue to pursue it?
Yeah, we can do an email vote, but I mean, we can also wait till the June meeting. I don't think there's a push. I can put it on the agenda for the June meeting, just so it's done in a meeting instead of virtual or done via email, since it's an expenditure. But yeah, that would be if the board wants to push forward with it, then I'll put it as an agenda item for June.
Is there anyone opposed to making it an agenda item? Okay, all right, so I think we can do that for June. The second issue for expenditures is that we have had a request for more of the CCBYS and SAS cards. And so we would like to discuss whether we should use the funds to purchase more.
Those are the ones that we provided to law enforcement. I believe our supply has been diminished, so this would just be to restock that. And I don't know I know there was one request. I don't know if there's more, or if we could continue to distribute more in the community.
Kristen was shaking her head, so I think that's It's working well for law enforcement?
Yeah, and I don't know if this agency actually ever got them or not. I don't think they did. So yeah, and then, the more we tell people, either I don't know if they lost them or what it may be, but I know people are definitely interested, in having them if they don't have them.
Anyone opposed to us purchasing more? Okay. All right. Then we can move on to our next item, which is the grant discussion and review of materials for fiscal year 2022. Julia sent us out some documentation in regards to the grant and the budget. Is there any comments or feedback on any of that was sent out? Julie, did you have anything that you wanted to add to this part of it?
Yeah, a couple things. So I've been I meet with the commission on a monthly basis for a coordinator meeting. And then I've had some separate conversations with our technical assistance provider just to help us continue to strengthen as a council. And so it's been suggested really that the documents that I sent to all of you could be used as tools for us to continue to monitor progress. And I know I've heard that as feedback just in talking, offline with members saying, it's hard to track like how we're progressing. And so that's one of the reasons we did the annual report, to really document our efforts. But if we can have something that's going to help us track our efforts on it as we go throughout the fiscal year, I hope that it would be a tool that people would kind of know what's going on, and members would be aware of what we're working on and how it all ties together with all of our endeavors coming from the council. So that's one thing with the plan. So they really need to be connected to, or really they need to communicate with each other. So you have that needs analysis, which has been really developed from conversations, from looking at data. And then you have the JJC plan that is based off of the needs analysis. And then even narrowing it a little bit further, you've got the racial and ethnic disparities plan, how we're going to address those as well. So all of those should be really connected to each other. The implementation timeline, or the bigger issue that they is a new thing that they put out this year, but that's where I've honed in on the adolescent domestic battery, because that seems to be the concern that we're moving forward with and addressing. So that's kind of an explanation of the materials that I sent to all of you. As far as budget goes, I really didn't make a lot of changes, I guess, from last year to this year, other than I took out some funding for training just because we haven't been able to pursue some of the training. I did leave a line item in there for, I think I left a line item in there for the cultural, I know I did for cultural, like humility or cultural competency, to provide training. I'm told that there's potential that that there may be something from the commission for racial and ethnic disparities, some sort of training. It might just be for the coordinators, but they might be helping with some training. But for us to pursue efforts for cultural competency, there would be money available for that. I think I did include, is anyone looking at the budget, and you can correct me, but or I can pull it up. But I thought I included a line item for potentially another training of trainers, just to continue building capacity, but I can't remember if I did. And then the other thing that I wanted to run by the board, so that I included as a line item, is an updated laptop or updated equipment. My laptop, I feel like, is like slow, and I've worked it to death, but if there's a disagreement and I need to continue, just suck it up and use what I have, I can do that. I just didn't want to, I wanted to be transparent and say that I was including that in the budget as a change. So those would be the things that I would highlight out of everything I sent.
Would we be able to, under the existing budget, pay for a new laptop with the funds we still have?
Yeah, you could. It's not, I just have to request, like, make an adjustment, but we have funding to do it. if you want to do it in this grant year.
Use it or lose it, right? Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we still have money to spend.
Right.
Yeah, I would agree if we can spend it out of this budget.
Okay.
And can I just ask a question? It would seem, is there like a national organization for juvenile justice council coordinators or executive directors that you can participate in, or that they have annual meetings or anything like that?
There's not, it's a weird thing. So the state has the council, has a statewide council of juvenile justice coordinators, but they're not like, I don't really understand the relationship with them versus like the commission provides the grant dollars for certain councils, but they're not really affiliated with that Illinois Association of Juvenile Justice Councils. I don't, national wise, haven't heard of anything in my.
I was just thinking it would be helpful to our council if you once a year or once every other year participated in a national conference. I have to believe they must have them. So, I know you network a lot already, but that would be a way to find out what other people are doing, and not just in Illinois, but across the country, and report back and implement or not implement or whatever. And I'm not saying there is something out there, but I got to believe they must have, through this commission, they must have some kind of annual opportunity to network like that.
Yeah, my best with the knowledge that I have of what's out there, and others please feel free to chime in, but my best connection to that would be that there are like, so the commission is considered a state advisory group. So I would imagine that, other states have state advisory groups, right? And so there's probably a conference in that sense. I know there's it seems like the juvenile justice councils might be like I don't want to say it's unique to Illinois, but I don't know other states that call it a juvenile justice council. They may have other like initiatives, but I don't know that it's like a nationwide concept. But I could certainly look into.
I was just thinking to include in next year's budget.
Yeah.
Find out if there's an opportunity for you to go out there and see what else is going on and report back.
Even if it's not, sorry, Latanya. Even if it's not like for juvenile justice councils, I know like there are ones specific for like racial and ethnic disparities, or some of the things that we're like looking at the data and like that sort of thing. There are conferences in that sense.
I was going to say that potentially somebody through the commission may know if they have counterparts or something similar in other states, so it might be worth an ask of somebody, through the Justice Commission.
I'm not trying to be specific. I'm just bringing it up because any other non-for-profit I've been a part of, each year the executive director there's in the budget is for the executive director to participate either in an annual conference or whatever other possible things there might be that would then help the local organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can ask and look into it for sure.
Maybe find one in Vegas or something.
Yeah, right. Are you going to join then, Mike?
Anything else on the budget? The grants?
I just have a question, and I spoke to Julia about this earlier. My office was asking if the continuation of the JJC's Zoom subscription is included in the council's budget. It was $150, and I think the SAO may have paid for it. I'm not sure, Julia. Christine Beer asked me to ask you about that and to put it to approval if possible here. So do you know what I'm talking about? The JJC Zoom subscription. And I think Christine had indicated she had given you a credit card for the SAO, but that it should come out of the council budget.
Yeah. Yep. So there's a vote later on in the agenda for this this fiscal year's, but we did have money in the budget already to cover, I think it was a GoToMeeting subscription at that point. We didn't know that we were going to have to get onto Zoom. So there was only $50, but we can move another $100 to cover the cost if the board approves that expenditure for this year. For next year, I put that as a specific line item to cover the Zoom subscription.
Okay, I appreciate that. I couldn't find the budget line items, so I wasn't sure if that was on there. Thanks.
Okay, anything else on the budget? Okay, so we can move on to new business, which is the Zoom. If I could have a motion to discuss our vote to, does the Board of Directors approve funding for $149.90 to cover the annual Zoom subscription cost?
I move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Looks like Deb second. Okay, so as Deb brought up, this is to fund our continued use of Zoom. Within that, though, is the question of whether we want to continue with this format going into the new fiscal year. So a discussion or comments on whether we want to continue to do Zoom or go back to our in-person meetings.
While I miss being in the same room with many of you, I do like the convenience of Zoom. I think we have better attendance because you can just, especially for you guys that's leaving in between court, you can run to your office really quick, jump on, as opposed to going to the JJC or wherever we happen to have the meeting. I think it's a smart thing to do. It's an efficient thing to do. That's just my opinion.
I would agree, but I would also suggest that if we can get together at some location, maybe for and have lunch or something. I know that's kind of what we used to do. Certainly with COVID, obviously things are going good now, but you never know what's going to happen, in 6 months from now. So having the Zoom as always a fallback ready to go is just that much easier. But I wouldn't be opposed to maybe a couple times a year. And again, I will offer again, St. Charles Police Department or wherever else, just might be a nice thing to get together and, have a lunch or something like that.
And I see lots of approvals with that. And I would agree. I think, Zoom, I would agree with LaTanya. I think our attendance over this past year has been much better than it was in previous years. So this has made it very efficient and easy for all of us to attend. So I also think that we should continue to do it, but with the caveat that maybe at least once or twice a year that we all get together face to face. Okay, then if nobody has any other discussion on it, we can call it to a vote. Okay, all those in favor of the Board of Directors approving the funding to cover the annual Zoom subscription cost, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Okay, so it looks like that has passed. So we will move on to our next new business item, which is the data presentation debrief. I know that several of us were a part of that call yesterday. Julia, can you remind me what the email vote was for this? I'm sorry, I've forgotten.
No, that's okay. It was kind of a weird timing thing, right? So it was just to approve to actually do the data presentation yesterday, and it passed. So this was just the email vote report.
Okay, all right. So we passed that, and then we did, the meeting was yesterday. Just opening it up for discussion if anybody had any comments or any feedback on that presentation.
I personally think it's something good and we should probably try to do maybe at least annually or twice a year, have them pull data for us. I think, we submit data, but I think the way they synthesized it and present it to us can drive some of the goals that we set, or give us opportunities to identify new initiatives. I thought it was very helpful and informative.
I agree with LaTanya. I thought it was really helpful to see the numbers and just with the graphs and charts to see how we're doing and what the trends are. I found it pretty informative and helpful.
And I absolutely like the idea of comparing us to similar counties. If when they give us data, it's not necessarily all the time similar in size, but similar in demographic and size. But I think based upon that, that would be good information for us to have as well.
Anybody else on that? Okay, we can move on to our next. Oops, sorry.
Rochelle, can I ask, is there anyone, I mean, I'll send it out the recording to you all, but now that those who watched the presentation, is there anyone else beyond our board that you feel like should see it, that you want me to forward it out to, or think I should forward it out to? I imagine you can forward it out within your own networks, but just thinking if there's anyone else you want me to send it to. And if you can't,
Julie, I think if you send it out to us, then I can forward it to just the association members of the Chiefs, and then the Chiefs can see it at their leisure and get kind of that overall perspective.
That would be awesome.
I hate to take us on a tangent. Where are we with trying to get data, the original arrest data, which I know is something that the commission is always looking for? Do we just kind of stop and just give what we can?
We haven't provided any, and I had asked for arrest data from this presentation because my understanding is that the CRPD is the same office that kind of works with, I believe it's through ICJA to get the leads data for the arrests so that they can provide, that was one of the decision points that they would provide, but then they were asking for it at a local level. So this is a really roundabout way to answer your question, LaTanya. Where we left off was, I want to say that they were moving towards considering like a proof of concept before we really dive into collecting arrest data from all of the police agencies in Kane County. So kind of working with one or two agencies to really flesh out the process. But that is something that I want to pursue, and that's in the grant application for this upcoming fiscal year, is to really hone in on that as well. Because you're right, they do press us for that.
If we're trying to partly identify disparities, wouldn't we need really to get information about all contacts with juveniles? Because I got to believe there's a large percentage that maybe there's a call and there's contact, but then there's no official arrest or charge. But if that's not included in the data, I mean, just for example, just throw it out there, let's say 90% of white youth are not arrested or charged, but how do we ever compare to the ones that are charged if we don't know the numbers of the people that aren't arrested or charged? I know that would be harder to collect that data, but it would seem to be an important data point.
Is that even available, Kristen? Is that something that you guys kind of track?
I was just going to comment on that. So that would be, and I'm speaking on our department, which is a pretty small agency, that would be really, really, really difficult because that stuff isn't tracked. It's not flagged. It would be considered like an incident report. So it's simply, spoke with this person, this is what was going on. And we've actually really narrowed down our, reports with juveniles and how they're documented because of the expungement laws now. So that would be difficult for our agency. And I can't imagine on the larger ones because that stuff isn't tracked. It's not categorized how arrests may be or, things like that. But that's just my agency. I don't know how, if you guys want to speak to yours.
You would literally have to have someone full-time documenting every report that came through every day for like a year.
Yeah.
You wanted like a year set. It's almost, literally we'd have to hire somebody to do that. Now, Julia, it sounds like, the rest of the arrest history, like station adjustments, local ordinance tickets like that, obviously I think we talked about just detention was the data from yesterday, correct? Just the kids that were detained, which is an incredibly small portion. And then obviously we could then see with how many station adjustments did we give? How many tickets did we write? You know, what's kind of our overall percentages as far as that's concerned. But I understand what you're saying, Mike, as far as collecting the data, but like I said, we would literally have to hire somebody full-time to go through every report that's generated every day, every contact, traffic stop, you know, it would almost be impossible. But I understand the desire, but easier said than done, I guess is what you could say.
And the arrest, to kind of expound further on that, the arrest data comes from fingerprint records. So that's really where you get your best dose of data. And in terms of juveniles, we don't fingerprint juveniles unless it's a felony, a significant felony. So you won't get most of those contacts, even in arrest data, from police departments. It just doesn't exist.
And that's the bad thing, because I fully believe there are, and I completely understand why, but I fully believe there are police departments that's doing a great job of doing like station adjustments and all of that and deflecting juveniles from the court system. I mean, we can report on the referrals that actually come to court services, and I give that information every year, but I feel like we're missing out on reporting the good and the fact that some departments are doing a good job of implementing evidence-based practices and not getting youth involved in the system, and we just don't have the data to support it. But we all know data is a beast to try to gather.
I would agree with that, and I keep track. So I supervise our liaison officers, and I have a spreadsheet of all our station adjustments because we keep track of them because officers forget about them, and we have community restitution here. So I literally have a spreadsheet of every pending one, every one we've done, so that we can keep up with them. And I encourage officers to do them as much as possible. We also write a lot of tickets. We can write a lot of tickets for vape and all kinds of stuff, even those aren't considered arrest or a local ordinance ticket. You know, arguably, we write an arrest report for that. So if I cite a kid for, let's say, possession of alcohol, I write him a ticket. We do an arrest report for that because technically he broke a local ordinance and he was cited in a court, and we consider that to be an arrest. So that is data that we would have in our system, you know, because we count how many tickets. We count the tickets, right? We count how many tickets people write or officers write and what they were for. So we could do, and then I have another spreadsheet of referrals. So I know who's being referred, I know who's being station adjusted. Getting the citation data, I don't keep track of every ticket we write, but our database does. So that could be, and again, I'm just speaking for St. Charles. I don't know if other towns keep a spreadsheet like I do. You know what I mean? Because like I said, people forget about the station adjustment. They forget about the hours, and then, oh man, we had a kid go 6 months. He never did his hours, and we forgot. You know, so that stuff we want to definitely keep track of. But I agree with you, LaTanya. It does show. You know, we in St. Charles we referred 10 kids, but we station adjusted 100. You know what I mean? Like that's really kind of we only refer for more serious, only detain for most serious, but 95% of the time we are writing minor tickets or station adjustments. So I believe our data would reflect that. Are you,
At one time, I believe I was told that St. Charles was providing data to DuPage, because it's part of St. Charles in DuPage for their juvenile arrests.
I don't know if our records is giving that data. I have not been asked for any kind of juvenile data. And again, I think someone mentioned too with like the expungement. I mean, with the expungement laws, we don't keep stuff. I know we're not interested in what happened 5 years ago, but there's only a finite amount of time. I've looked at, you know, data here or there, and I can see expunged already, and I can't look up. You know, I'd have to really do a lot of digging to figure out what happened because it's expunged. This is the way it is. It's automatic too. So. That's kind of more of a record thing. I couldn't tell you, Julie, about what we give DuPage or what they ask for. I would imagine if that would go through our record supervisor to provide that data. So.
Yeah, because I know their council, they're not a commission funded site anymore, but their council did a lot of work around trying to collect arrest data from their police agencies. And then they worked with the county GIS department to map out where those arrests were. So they've made a big effort, but I just, from our county, crossover counties that are also in Kane, departments that are in Kane and DuPage. I thought they said it, I know Aurora obviously, but I thought they said St. Charles, but I could be wrong. The other thing I'll say too, about the comment that was made with the juvenile arrest and tracking it with fingerprints, when we did the law enforcement survey, that was one of the questions that we asked from departments, and there's a lot of variation in how departments handle juvenile arrests and what gets sent into leads too. So I know that's always been our struggle, is we can't just we don't want to just rely on leads data because we know that's not fully representative. That's why we want to do it at a local level, to work with our police agencies.
Well, my understanding, there's only a handful of charges that we can print kids and send to the state. Most of the time, you know, that doesn't mean we can't print, but there's only probably the most serious charges that can be transmitted to the state. Whereas, you know, 5 years ago, we transmitted everything. But so you're only looking at, if whatever is transmitted, it's only a handful of charges. It's definitely not every arrest. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and that's something that we could really take that data, right, and like really put some energy towards that and diving into, is that really an issue? Do we really have that amount of variation in our community? And is there some misperceptions about what's supposed to be sent downstate?
Anything else on that? Okay, we can move on to our final two items, which are kind of similar. The first is distributing agency flyers. Not too long ago, Julia received a request to send out an agency flyer to advertise their event. There was on that flyer, and Julie can correct me, I had the information and now I have forgotten, but they were partnering with an elected senator for that event. I reached out to State's Attorney Mosser just to make sure that it was okay for Julia to send that flyer out. We didn't want it to be perceived that we were particularly in favor of one senator over another or anything like that. State's Attorney Mosser did indicate that we could send it out, and it was sent out. But we thought that we should include this as new business to open it up to the board as a full as to whether we wanted to set parameters on or a process for distributing materials, especially if there was indication on there that an elected official was partnering with the event or something of that nature. So that is why that is a part of our new business.
This is something we've discussed in the past, and that's probably why you went to ASA Mosser about it, because if I recall right, a few years ago, there was a flyer might have been sent out. It was kind of like, oh, we probably shouldn't have sent it because it did have an elected, it had the campaign of an official. I can't remember if it was the campaign supporting an official or it was just like this one where the official was in support of the event. I don't know if that's the boundary that is related to the campaign versus somebody that's already in office. But this is something that we've discussed on and off throughout the years, trying to make sure that, because I mean, we're using county equipment to disperse the information. And I think that's where the issue lies, because when Julia sends it, she's using county funded taxpayer equipment to distribute.
And LaTanya is absolutely right. The difference between why this one was able to be sent out is that it was not a campaign of this particular senator. The senator was not in the midst of an election, but was already a sitting senator. And that was the difference that State's Attorney Mosser said that we could send it out. We just wanted to make sure that the board was aware that this discussion was had, and if there were any other suggestions or if anybody had a request as to how this should be handled going forward. I think we know at this point that the difference is, you know, the one parameter that we are looking at is making sure that it is not a flyer or information that is a result of someone's campaign. So a campaign is not supporting it, or a person running for election is not supporting it.
Can you explain what was on the flyer in relation to the state senator or whoever it was?
Julia, I'm sorry, I've forgotten.
No, that's okay. It was just kind of it was basically a sponsorship on the bottom of the flyer that said being offered in collaboration with, and it was the office of the state senator.
So in theory, I think because you do have elected officials, especially when it deals with like mental health issues and things like that, that will kind of sponsor and be in support of our community agencies to further those initiatives. So a part of me says you don't want to limit and not be able to broadcast those events, because ultimately it is a help to the community in addressing some of the issues that we discuss at this table. So I guess as long as we are abiding by and we are being legally justified as to how and when we can distribute it, I think it's good, because there are some decent opportunities in which those political agents are in support of our community providers.
And my only thought was, you know, if the board wants to be made aware of, you know, before it's sent out, because I do know, you know, in agreeing with LaTanya that there are situations where it could benefit the people, that the juveniles in our community, we may not all necessarily agree with what that particular senator or elected official stands for in other areas, that we may not want our board associated with that. So I don't know if the board wants to be notified ahead of when we get those, and notified ahead of time that someone, an elected official, is a part of that, or if we are fine just still going with the idea that if it is a campaign, we do not send them out, but we can send them out if it is someone already an elected official. Well, we can continue to, you know, if people have thoughts after the meeting about that, or want to send emails to Julia about that. But for right now, I guess we'll keep it as we've been doing it. Okay. All right, so we can move on to the last one, which is kind of similar. Julia received a request from Aunt Martha's. They are applying for a grant for CCBYS. They are asking for a letter of support from the council. Their due date is May 26th, but they have asked for the letter by May 19th. Julia has heard, although no one has contacted her, that another agency in our community is also interested in that grant. So the question came up, and I reached out to LaTanya to speak to her about this as well, whether we would want to give, what are our criteria again for giving out letters of support? If we need to add any parameters to that, are we in favor of giving letters of support to more than one agency for the same grant? Or if we want to consider each request individually and make a decision to only support one over another for a particular grant. So any comments or suggestions? What I know when I spoke to LaTanya and her and I had agreed that certainly if the grant is for something that would again impact and help the people of our community, is there harm in agreeing to give that letter of support to more than one agency, because the ultimate benefit would be to the people of our community? So any thoughts on that?
Just one.
I was
Go
just
ahead,
going to say, I don't think we should be picking between two agencies. I mean, either we support both or we don't support either, but it doesn't sound like the other agencies reached out to us, though. That's on them, kind of.
Just one thing that I just want to put out there, you know, and I don't attend all of the board of directors meetings, but I think it's something to consider. I think we do want to give letters of support that does help our community providers when they're looking for grant funding. We know how difficult it is to get grant funding. One of the things I think we should consider is if we have information or we are aware that some of the output of those agencies may not be what we would be expecting, is that something that as a council, is there some type of parameters or anything that we place to say, yes, we support this grant, these grant dollars coming to Kane County. However, maybe not all of our providers are giving the output that's necessary. And we've seen evidence of that. Is that something that we discuss? Is that something we just take on a case-by-case basis as a board? Because I do think that opportunity, or there will be chances that is the case.
I would agree that I think that we should, you know, and maybe it is a discussion on an individual basis as to make sure that based upon what we have seen, if we are behind the output that the particular agency has put out in the past. Okay. So it sounds like we want to kind of leave it on a case-by-case basis and not necessarily change the way that we've been doing it in the past. Seeing some head nods, yes. Okay. All right. Anything else on that? Okay. So sorry, we are a little bit over. So I would just ask for I'm sorry. Any other updates anyone has?
I just have a question for Kristen. The Kane County Juvenile Officers Association, are you guys still having meetings for that? Or is this kind of a COVID freeze, if you will? Or
So yeah, we've been on hold. We are trying to get it set up to do Zooms.
Okay.
So we're in the process of doing that. And then once that gets set up, yeah, we're definitely going to go back. I think the Zoom's going to be the easier way to go. And I think we're going to get more of a turnout, and it's just going to be safer that way.
I would just say too, I think with those meetings, you know, obviously, and some of us have attend those and have been there before, but I know maybe some more boots on the ground are there, liaison officers. I think some of what we're talking about here could get passed down to there, and we can kind of communicate. You know, I think we kind of, you know, like LaTanya was saying, you know, one agency might do it this way, one agency might keep track of this way. I think that's a good way for agencies to kind of talk about, how do we keep track of this, or how do we keep track of that? And I think maybe that kind of, not a subcommittee, but, you know, kind of, like I said, more boots on the ground as far as what actual juvenile officers are doing and what discussion is there. I think they're great meetings, but I think that can kind of help us understand what's going on and what other agencies are doing. So I feel like having those meetings for Zoom, maybe we can get some of the data or some of the info we're looking for as far as racial disparities or how we keep track juvenile arrests will help us in turn. So Kristen, do you?
So yeah, we addressed this. I don't remember. My memory's horrible, but we did address this in some of the meetings, and I did then reach out to some of the, you know, representatives that would attend the meetings just to talk about, you know, is this even possible to get this data? How does that look for your agency? And we had a really positive response. So again, we were kind of jumping through the hoops with Ms. Seeberger regarding like what could be given out. Could we get the, you know, there were just a lot of hoops that we were still jumping through in that beginning phase. But yeah, it was, you know, people were very receptive of it. So I think it's definitely a possibility. We just have to get some of that groundwork done.
Oh, okay. Anything else? Okay, so if I could have a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
All right, then it is 1:06 and we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
I don't think this person is here. So I just wanted to tell you real quick in regards to your email about Sheriff Hain.
Yeah.
So I don't know how long it has been that he hasn't been attending, but I can tell you, I think I might know part of the reason that it is.